Hello, Sydneys! It is finally time for me to give you my spoiler review on Scream 6. Now that the movie has been released, it's been a full weekend, you've gotten a chance to check out this movie, maybe even multiple times. At least I know I did, saw it once in 2D and 3D. 3D wasn't really necessary, man, but it was still nice to see it again. So here, what I'm going to be doing here for you guys is just venting off some of the things I absolutely loved about this sequel, and also ranting off about the things I thought were really holding it back. But this ain't just going to be about my opinion, no. I want you Scream fans to get in that comment section, turn it into a full discussion, let me know what you loved and hated about this sequel. Because while I will say I think the majority of people absolutely loved this movie, there is a decent chunk that were kind of underwhelmed or were hoping for more. And everyone's opinion here is valid, okay? I promise not to find ya and come stabby stabby. Heck, as a little incentive for you guys, I know Scream fans have been going crazy for those Scream Ghostface popcorn buckets. I have an extra one here. Got mine sitting up there next to my little Ghostface cup. I love that we're getting Scream merch with these movies, by the way. But if you want to win this one, just make sure you're subscribed, hitting that like button, and tell me something you loved or hated about the movie. As long as you're a Scream fan, you're entitled to this. Okay, but finally, it's just time to dive straight into things. I'll put timestamps in the description, and this whole week it will be just me talking about Scream. I'll do a ranking video where I'm not only going to rank the movies themselves, I'm going to rank the ghost faces, I'm going to rank the openings, and I'm going to throw in a few little other topics in there just to kind of make it fun and exciting, so look out for that. And then I'm going to make a whole separate video talking about my predictions for Scream 7, because they gotta be making it, man. This movie was the record opening for the franchise. They're not gonna stop here. But as you guys might have seen from my spoiler-free review, I walked away pretty damn happy with this movie. It did exactly what I wanted from a new Scream movie, and that is introduce a lot of new elements, take some risks, show us a Ghostface that was kind of unforgiving and really relentless. It wasn't even them just upping the ante on the violence and the kills. They added set pieces, chase sequences, and thrilling moments that topped a lot of what the franchise has previously done. Still, there was more than a few gripes I had with this that were really kind of bothering me, and as the weekend went on, before I could do this spoiler review, it was like this little itch that I just kept picking at until those little gripes kind of became bigger than I wanted. But starting off here with the opening sequence for Scream 6, oh my god, what a fantastic one. So we all kind of knew it was going to end up being Samara Weaving with just how little she was in the trailers and marketings, and even when they would show her, it would always be the same couple of scenes. You know, she has a history with the Radio Silence team since she did the movie Ready or Not, and I desperately wanted her part of this franchise. I jumped up and down when they confirmed she would be part of the cast. I was just kind of hoping her role would be more than just the opening kill, but whatever the case may be, she's a college professor for the same college our heroes are going to, teaching a course on horror movies, specifically slashers, and that was kind of a nice little commentary to add in there. It was kind of stuff we've heard before, but the way the scene was playing out to me, this was starting out like a very average opening to me. I was kind of like, okay, so this is what we're gonna do here. You know, she's on the phone, waiting for a day, and I don't know who else, but I immediately knew that was Tony Revolori's voice, so I was like, oh my god, did they just give away who Ghostface would be in this movie? Because somebody else gotta recognize that voice. Or in my mind, I was also thinking, oh, they're gonna use the Scream voice changer in this movie, because no way they just revealed the killer right away. But as the scene plays out and this Ghostface is slowly luring her into an alley all by herself, we get a pretty brutal stabbing of this Ghostface just attacking Samara Weaving, and this girl has lungs on her, man. This is why we needed her to stay longer in the franchise. Don't forget this. And even though this kill was pretty average, man, the intensity behind it, the amount of times you would see the knife go in and out, paired up with her screaming, the kill just felt very differently than what we've seen recently in Scream movies. So I like that they were headed in that direction. And you know, as a fan of this franchise who obsesses over these movies and knows every little detail, you can pinpoint where the opening would have ended for a typical Scream movie. Right when he raises up the knife, looking at the camera and says, "Now I see something red," and slashes, that would have been the moment that the cue card would have opened up and it would have said Scream 6, rock music kicks in, and we go to where our main character is. That's the traditional formula for every Scream movie, and I'm glad that from the opening they told you, this ain't your traditional Scream movie. At least not till the end. The title card didn't come in, and I was looking around kind of confused, like, what's going on here? And you just hear this Ghostface breathing up and down, the blood on his mask, him coming down, looking at her, and I'm like, they are not about to do this right now. No way they're about to take off the mask. And the mask freaking comes off. I was like, okay, so what does this mean now? My head was racing through the scenarios like, man, they kept this secret so good. We're gonna follow a Ghostface throughout the entirety of the movie. That is a major risk. I don't know if I'm gonna love that, but let's see how you do this. Then we see Tony Revolori do what a lot of Ghostface do when the camera cuts is, put away his costume, put it in his backpack, go on about his regular day like he's a nobody, even walks into Tara, essentially a main character of this franchise, and has a casual conversation. Having this point of view as an audience member now that, like, oh my god, she's interacting with a Ghostface. They know each other, they're friendly. She doesn't even suspect that this man is trying to target her. I love that entire scenario setup because you never get to feel that the first time you watch a Scream movie, Rewatching these, you know that already. You're like, okay, so this guy's gonna be the killer. Let me watch him closely and see if he's gonna give away any details about it. But that's always on your second viewing of Scream. You never feel that way the first time. So that was just kind of cool to see that. The scene continues on, and I feel like it maybe dragged on a little bit. It was still kind of nice to see Tony Revolori in his apartment, showing his mini shrine of Ghostface mask and stab memorabilia, getting the phone call from the real Ghostface thinking it's his partner Greg, revealing the motive behind these guys right away, that they just wanted to continue Richie's movie. They are fans of the stab movies just like Richie. They believed in his cause, and they think it's a shame that he didn't get to finish his work, so they were gonna do it, Who knows if they actually knew Richie, or they were just in the same fan forums and they took it upon themselves. It was cool to see the Friday the 13th Easter egg in there of Jason Takes Manhattan, the movie where Jason goes to New York. Ghostface did a much better job than Jason did in New York, I'll tell you that. But besides the mutilated body and head of Greg inside the refrigerator, the one part that kind of surprised me of this opening is when Tony Revolori's character of Jason was just sitting there describing what he felt as Ghostface. We've never really seen that in a Scream movie where they just openly glorify how it felt to kill somebody, why they like that feeling, why they were begging for it. He said he had blue balls, he wanted to do it so bad, and then the description of she was an animal. I could really go on and on about these little details, but it was just an awesome opening for me, probably the best we've had since Scream 2. Again, look out for my ranking video where I'll rank the openings in there. But a cool line that Ghostface threw in there, right before the title card came in about F movies. That's something right there that the movie I wish kind of stuck with and held on to for the ending reveal and motive of this movie that I felt like they kind of missed on a theme there, but we'll get there in a sec. But with that opening out of the way, you go with the traditional steps that a Scream movie has and introduce us into what the main character is doing, where we find Sam in the middle of therapy. She was talking to her therapist, Dr. Stone. That was another suspect character for a lot of us going into the movie. A lot of people were pegging him to be the Ghostface for the film. I was honestly almost a little convinced just from the first scene. We have basically Sam Carpenter explaining out what happened in the events of Scream 5 and the revelation that the reason she's in therapy is not because that whole experience was traumatic for her. No, it was because when she killed off Richie, she liked it. She was okay with it. It felt right to her. And the whole time she's explaining this, you can see the therapist is kind of bothered by it. And that's when I thought this could actually be Richie's dad right here, or have some sort of connection to the killers from the previous movie, because he seems almost upset by what she's saying and he's holding back his emotions. But really, he was just like, look, I'm kind of a cheap therapist. You don't make a lot of money. I'm not equipped to deal with this. Heck, I'm supposed to report you to the police because you just said you like killing. There was even some cool little Easter eggs off to the side inside this therapist's office. He has these kind of like yarn dolls of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even the Addams Family in there. So Wednesday, with like Jenna Ortega. I noticed that in my first viewing and I'm like, oh, horror fan, this guy must be somehow a killer. But obviously not, because he gets a pretty gnarly death by Ghostface in daylight where he's stabbed through the freaking face. Again, the way the movie zooms in on these typical knife kills, they made them feel more brutal than they have in the past. Because 6 movies in with Ghostface, knife killings can get pretty boring after a while, but I felt this movie did a great job intensifying those typical stab killings with the sound of it, the blood use, even these actors screaming and whatnot. Just every time someone got knifed, I actually felt it. With that over with, we catch up with a lot of the characters that we haven't seen since the last movie, where they're all at a frat Halloween party. To me, this was like the one part of the movie where they tried really giving you those Halloween vibes I mentioned in my spoiler-free review. Sure, you have the subway scene where everyone's in Halloween costumes so that Ghostface can blend in, but I was kind of wanting more of that Halloween aesthetic with like orange lighting or pumpkin, or maybe even New York being decorated. But then again, haven't been in New York in my life. I don't even know if New York decorates for Halloween, but I felt like this was the only real Halloween vibe of this entire movie. And it was just nice getting to see these characters interact, kind of live their own lives, but mainly it was kind of a setup to show the relationship between Sam and Tara right now. You know, Sam's being a little overprotective. She has an idea that maybe this could happen again. Heck, it happened to Sidney 4 to 5 other times. And I felt like in the last movie, a lot of people came out saying, you know, Jenna Ortega should have been the main lead. Melissa Barrera is okay. She's kind of weak in here. I felt like Melissa Barrera was given a lot of strong moments in the film. Like, I kind of felt bad for Sam whenever Tara was like, what are you gonna do with your life? You followed me here. You're working 2 crappy jobs. I'ma get a degree. I'ma get a job. You ain't nothing, Sam. I was like, well, chill out. This girl saved your life. Plus, Sam is also dealing with the fact that the entire world thinks that she's a Ghostface mastermind that framed her boyfriend in Amber. That was kind of something I wasn't expecting to see in this movie, but it totally fits with me, you know? People love conspiracy theories. She's also the dang son of a murderer that's public knowledge for the entire world. Of course, people are gonna want to believe that and treat her harshly. Heck, I was kind of hoping that was gonna be the reason why Gale Weathers ended up writing a book about Scream 5, because we get a moment where the characters kind of touch upon that, and they do a great callback to whenever Sidney punches Gale, where Gale does dodge it the first time, but then Tara gets that second lick in. I thought Gale's excuse was going to be, I saw the internet making up lies and rumors about you, so I set the record straight to what actually happened. But now Gale still has kind of that sneaky two-faced attitude in her, where she was saying some pretty negative things about Sam, kind of fueling more of those conspiracy theories. That's just one of the many things in this movie that heavily mirrors Scream 2, because Gale also did that with Dewey in her book when she wrote about the events of the first Scream movie, and that really hurt Dewey's feelings. But the next thing I kind of want to focus on is the new and old characters, and how I feel Scream 6 just did a better job developing and fleshing them out than Scream 5 did. Because although I really like Scream 5 and what they did there, one of my problems was there was only a few times I actually felt genuine fear for the characters on screen. One was for Judy, Hicks, and Wes when they were being attacked by Ghostface, and of course the Dewey scene in the hospital. But the only reason I felt true suspense and worry for those characters at the time is because that's carryover baggage from me already liking those characters from previous Scream films, like Scream 4 for Judy, and well, Dewey from all the other ones. When the Chad sequence happened in Scream 5, yeah, I thought it kind of sucked that it looks like they killed off Chad there, because I would have liked to have seen him continue on. Thank goodness he did, even though again, that was another scene he should not have survived. In fact, I think the creative team said he was supposed to die, but they kind of wanted him to live for the next one. Here though, almost every time a character, new or old, was put in a suspenseful situation, edge of my seat. Like Annika, for instance. Scream 6 is probably going to get awarded the best relationship pairings out of the group, because they had so many relationships I actually cared about. Annika and Mindy, Chad and Tara, which that was a complete surprise to me, but it really ended up working for me. I thought what they had throughout the movie was really sweet, and I hope it continues on in sequels. And as well, Sam and Danny, another character I'm so happy made it to the end of the movie. Danny is quickly going to be one of my new favorites going into Scream 7. I think what Josh Segura was able to do was charming, funny, and also very protective. Just like those little moments of him really trying to warn the group, be part of the core four, even telling Sam, you can't trust anybody, not even me. Oh, I love this guy. To quote Mickey,
he's bright and funny and handsome. This was just the kind of boy you'd like to take home to mom.
but because Scream 6 had so many fake out deaths, that kind of left us with just Annika as the heartbreaking death of the movie, and that's a brand new character that we just met. Still though, that entire sequence of Ghostface busting into the apartment, Annika trying to save Mindy and getting a knife to the stomach, where again, they zoom in, the twisting of the knife and going up her stomach. Oh, dude. I don't know how the heck she continued walking and was even staying sturdy on that ladder for as long as she did. Nah, when Annika fell, hit the trash can in the floor, jaw to the ground, I was like, oh, I can't believe they did that. I was hurting for Mindy. And I guess since we're talking about a lot of the chase sequence and thrilling moments, going to the Bodega sequence, that was unexpected for me. They were just casually walking the streets, and out of nowhere, Ghostface shows up chasing after them. As a side note, a lot of us were complaining how this Ghostface has the ability to do the Matrix and dodge bullets. I feel like it looked a little smoother in the movie, where he didn't move at the speed of light. He just kind of dodged the bullet right in time. And the rest of that sequence also super suspenseful. A lot of people didn't want Ghostface rocking his shotgun, but him taking it from the store owner and then using it to his own advantage, I truly love that, and I kind of hope in the sequel they do more things with Ghostface using different weapons. If we get onto the subway scene, that's when I'm also surprised that it had me so tense, because that's one of those moments they were just heavily marketing in the trailers and whatnot, and once you've seen it as many times as I do, you think, oh, when it happens in the movie, I'm going to be a little desensitized to it. But even though they were showing that off so much, it was still played off so well in the movie. You didn't know who was Ghostface, where he was going to be coming from, and just the fear that you can be in a public location and Ghostface can still get the upper hand on you and nobody will say or do a thing. I mentioned I've never been in New York, but I've heard that's perfectly in line with subway action. People will not help you and will just turn the other way even if they saw it happen. I really thought they were actually going to kill Mindy off there, and it would have been kind of sad because she was separated from the group. She was alone. She died by herself without her friends, but it was a fake out death. As soon as she got out of the subway, leaned on the pole, and then said, F this franchise, I was like, oh, so she's making it out of this. They wouldn't kill her off with a joke. Side note, while I did love all the Halloween costumes in there, you know, from Freddy Krueger, Chucky, Michael Myers, Pinhead, all that stuff that we got to cover when the trailer came out, my favorite costume is when somebody was dressed as Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls, and that's because Roger L. Jackson, the voice of Ghostface, is also the voice of Mojo Jojo, so kind of a nice little Easter egg in there. But the next big chase sequence here was probably my favorite of the movie, and that was the whole Gale and Ghostface interaction. You know, it feels like Scream is following the formula that the newer Star Wars films had, where each entry is focusing on a legacy character. You know, Force Awakens with Harrison Ford, then Last Jedi was on Luke Skywalker, and it was eventually supposed to be Princess Leia for the finale movie, until unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away. So here in that same formula, Scream 5 was really focusing on Dewey and giving him that heroic outing. People still feel controversial about that. I still think they handled it tastefully. So in this movie, not featuring Sidney Prescott, it was time for Gale to get her moment, and I felt like most of the movie, she wasn't used to her full advantage. Like, aside from this one scene that I feel kind of made up for it, I feel like they could have used her more. But still, because in Scream 5 they killed off Dewey, I was on the edge of my seat for Gale. I didn't know whether she was gonna live or die, because the franchise has proven we're gonna kill legacy characters, and that's a true testament to radio silence. Watching all these past Scream movies where they've survived so many times, I think a lot of us would have just been watching back like, Gale's gonna win by the end of this. We know this already. But no, the lines Ghostface was throwing at Gale, Roger L. Jackson put his all into this performance too, okay? It felt like they were building up to her dying, because they were like, oh, you would have made a great Ghostface, Gale. Sidney never made sense. Dewey was the hero, but you always had it in you. I was like, oh, they're gonna do it. Even taunting her a little bit with Dewey's death, and then Courteney Cox making the expression of being sad about it. There's a great moment in the movie where Gale's talking to Sam about Dewey, and they play his cowboy theme from Scream 2. That warmed my heart that they threw that in there. I've heard some people complain that she was really dumb in that moment of escaping her bedroom, where Ghostface only had one entry point and she could have been saved until the cops arrived. But I feel like those people are missing the point of these moments and how they're so true to the character. The reason Dewey died in Scream 5 is because he's the hero. He has that in him. He wanted to go back, finish off Ghostface, and unfortunately it didn't work out for him. In this situation with Gale, she's not one to be cornered and stay there for safety. Gale has this ego in her that I'm always gonna survive. I've survived this long. I have the gun. I can kill him now. Which is why Gale will always be the one to get on a plane and show up wherever Ghostface is, regardless if she knows the people being attacked or not. So I thought it was very in line with her character to get out of the safe space and look for Ghostface. In that moment where she star 69's his ass.
No. Bitch, hang the phone up and star 69 his ass. Damn.
Super smart of her, and shows her experience with Ghostface. And look, I'ma say it, if she ended up dying in that moment, I think it would have been a nice sending off of her character. The moment Ghostface grabbed that piece of glass, put it in her rib, tears were starting to form. I was like, this is it. This is the end. Then her telling Sam and Tara, tell Sidney he didn't get me. I was like, oh no, they're doing this to me. But you know what? They made her survive the moment. And as much as I would have liked that not to have been another fake out death in this movie, I do think it was the right call. If Gale is gonna go out, she needs to go out with Sidney there, holding her hand, making the ultimate sacrifice, maybe even just finally apologizing for writing that book about her mom and exploiting her life so much. Just something like that is the closure we need. We don't need another another Dewey situation where they die alone. But admittedly, stepping off that point, that is one of my issues with the movie, is just the amount of fake out deaths they have in here. I mean, let's count them down. So of course you have that Gale scene where she was just stabbed so many different spots, and I think she should have died. They set it up well by having the police be called before Ghostface even starts the attack on her so that they could show up at the last minute and save her. Fine. We have Mindy surviving her subway attack from 2 stabbings in the stomach. It looks like paramedics are on standby in subway cars. I didn't know that's a thing, but she survives that encounter. Then you have one of the most badass moments to ever happen in a Scream franchise. Chad is kicking butt against Ghostface, okay? They're trying to trap him in the shrine, and the boy is just getting punch after punch, using the camera to his advantage, even doing the one thing that fans always scream about: Ghostface is down on the ground, beat him, punch him. And Chad was about to do just that, put the gumball machine on Ghostface's head, until second Ghostface comes out, starts stabbing him, putting Chad on his knees, and both of them just going left and right. Chest stab, rib stab, stomach stab. It was like one of the most gnarly kills of the entire franchise, like immediately top 3 or 4 kills of the entire Scream series. When that happened, the zoom in on his face, blood coming out his mouth, Tara screaming while her sister holds her back, they just finally confessed their love to each other. I honestly think they should have let Chad die there, man. They even threw in the signature Ghostface clean at the same time with 2 Ghostfaces. Oh, it was so sweet. I could not believe when the movie ended and they said, we got a live one here, and he's sitting in that hospital bed going, yeah, core 4. But again, I'm such a hypocrite because I love Chad so much. I want him to be in the 7th film, so I'm gonna give it a pass, but really, come on, even I know he should not have survived that. This is gonna become a glaring issue for Scream 7, okay? Because like Mindy was mentioning, the rules of this movie were, it's a franchise. It wasn't even sticking horror specific. It was talking about franchises in general. How once they get to a certain amount of sequels, they just have to up the ante, kills are more gnarly, more crazy, and they have to come up with weird excuses for the story to continue. But by doing this many fake out deaths, when you were giving us such a brutal Ghostface, you have now set the standard that you can be stabbed in the stomach 10 times. As long as it's in the stomach, you're basically gonna survive that. So when Scream 7 comes around, it's almost like the Fast and Furious effect, you know? Once they do one ridiculous stunt, the next movie, they gotta do another ridiculous stunt, and they have to keep upping that ante for the sake of just keeping the audience entertained, because they've already set a standard. So with a lot of these gnarly kills, not even crippling a lot of these characters for Scream 7, oh, when it comes time for them to die, you're gonna have to blow them up, you're gonna have to drop them from 100 stories, because now if we see one character die from a simple stab to the chest, we're gonna be like, that didn't stop him in the last movie when he got 30 to the chest. And that can be scary because, again, look at the latest Fast and Furious trailer and what they're doing there. I don't want that to happen to Scream. So while a lot of these fake out deaths did bother me in the movie, I saw it more as them just wanting to have a good cast for Scream 7. Because admit it, the cast they already have right now is looking banger for Scream 7. Danny, the core 4, Gale Weathers, Kirby, and hopefully Sidney Prescott, along with her husband Mark. I didn't even talk about that. I thought the way they explained off Sidney in this movie, perfect. Gale comes in saying Sidney sends her love, but she's gonna take her husband, Mark, and the kids somewhere safe. That's exactly what Sidney should do. She doesn't have a connection with Sam and Tara. Sure, they fought off one pair of ghost faces together, but that doesn't mean they're family. Sidney is a mother with a husband and kids. That is where her priority should be, and she made the right choice by going somewhere safe and leaving them behind. I also agree her character deserves a happy ending and should be unbothered if the series wants to continue. Then again, though, I still feel like she needs a solid finale given, and so I'm hopeful she'll return in Scream 7. Because again, look at that stacked cast of surviving characters. That is going to be the movie where they're going to kill off people and our hearts are really going to be broken. Because now we are tethered to the surviving group of characters. Danny doesn't get a lot of screen time in this movie, but I love him. And if he dies in 7, which I know he is going to, it is going to break me. But okay, let's finally talk about that ending finale, the twist, the motive, my biggest issue with the entirety of the movie. It's the thing that's holding me back from putting it higher on my ranking list of one of the better sequels and just kind of right in the middle. So by the end of the movie, it's revealed that it's Detective Bailey along with his 2 children, Quinn and Ethan, wanting to get revenge on the Carpenter sisters for what happened to Richie. And as soon as that reveal happened, smile just kind of went down on my face. I sat back in my chair going, why did you do that? Everything in the movie was so unique, different, taking such wild approaches, and then the finale is just a copy of Scream 2. I know there's fans out there going, Chris, that's the point. This new trilogy is gonna mirror the past 3 movies. I don't want that. They did that for Scream 5. You recreated the original for a new modern audience, and I felt like that was the thing holding Scream 5 back from being a better movie. It was still a good movie, but that's because you played it safe, copying the formula of the best Scream movie, the first one. But even then, the reveal wasn't a carbon copy in that movie. It was different. Sure, you had the boyfriend and the partner, but the motive was about toxic fandom, adding in that commentary, updating it for modern audience. So sure, it was copying the first film, but it's had its own spin on it. This one really wasn't. It was almost just directly copying Scream 2. And look, I'll give the movie props for trying to keep the audience on its feet and twist you around and keep you guessing, because I think for a lot of the movie, they made it so obvious it was actually them and it was going to be Richie's family. We had the ID that was in the first crime scene, and I thought, wow, I wonder who could get access to Sam's ID. Maybe her roommate, Quinn. And you have Quinn talk to Tara talking about, oh, you know, my dad's a little protective too. When my brother died, he came over here with me to college. I'm like, when your brother died, they're not good. Don't tell me your brother's Richie. Then you have the phone number of Richie showing up on Sam's phone. I'm like, who else would have Richie's phone number other than his family? Some of us are still on our family plans. Am I right, guys? Even Mindy constantly pointing the finger at Ethan, which, like, I love Mindy's character, but that's the one aspect of her character I hate. They just make her the finger pointing menace, where she doesn't feel as clever as Randy did whenever he was doing that. She feels more like the hand-holding character for the audience, going, listen to me now. I'm basically feeding to you on a silver spoon what you should know, audience. I mentioned that in my spoiler-free review. I feel like Radio Silence needs to work on the subtlety with the finger pointing and the little hints to who Ghostface is. But back to what I was saying, the movie was making it obvious it was them, but they were throwing curveballs only to distract the audience, but not things that make logical sense in their universe. For one, Quinn faking her death. That's not even something new in the Scream franchise. Remember in Scream 3, we had Roman also fake his death. The only difference is there wasn't any witnesses other than Gale or police that surrounded them that were supposed to take the body away and eventually perform autopsies. The excuse that the dad had here was, I showed up first to the crime scene, I switched out the bodies with a fresh one and a prosthetic. He uses the words a prosthetic. Mr. Bailey, I don't know how long you've been a police officer, but these bodies don't just get taken to the incinerator right away. They get taken to an autopsy. They examine where these stab wounds are. I'm sure they make some sort of ID on what body they're doing, and if you threw in a prosthetic, something plastic or rubbery, I'm sure the autopsy team would go, I don't think this is a real person. And again, that's such a major plot hole to me, only meant to trick the audience, but doesn't make sense within their universe. Cause then explain it to me this, Mr. Bailey, how were you planning to get away with it after everything is said and done? Almost every Ghostface from 1 through 5 has a solid alibi on how they're gonna get away with their crime spree. In the first movie, Stu and Billy were gonna blame it on Sidney's father and have his motive be that he went crazy on the 1-year anniversary of his wife's death, even going as far as to killing Sidney, but he left Billy and Stu alive, only surviving through flesh wounds. That was going to be that motive, and they even cloned his cellular. They had a whole bunch of stuff that pinpointed the dad as the killer, and it was going to work for them. Scream 2, Mrs. Loomis had a brilliant alibi. She created a fake identity, which again, this is what this family did. Their last names aren't the Baileys, they're the Kirsches. Makes me wonder how you transferred to the police department, Detective Bailey. Pretty sure they run a background check before you get hired in a new city like New York. A change in last name and the fact your son was last year's biggest murderer, I think, would come up in a background. Just saying. But Nancy Loomis was just gonna pin all the murders on Mickey and have him be the crazy horror fan that took his love of movies too far, and she was gonna disappear in the wind because Debbie Salt didn't even exist. Perfect alibi. Scream 3, Roman was gonna go through an elaborate plan to set up Sidney to be the Ghostface of the movie because she would have found out that Milton was the person that originally took advantage of her mom all those years ago. It drove her crazy, and then she just wanted revenge. Maybe some small holes in there, but overall could work. Scream 4, they did something brilliantly where Jill was the closest Ghostface to ever get away with the entire thing. Scream 5, Richie and Amber were gonna blame it all on Sam and peg her to be the killer because she's related to Billy Loomis, and even though they ended up failing at that plan, the world still ended up believing what they were trying to set up. Here, one, Detective Bailey, after you got away with everything, how are you gonna explain the fact that your daughter Quinn is now alive when you confirmed her death at the crime scene when you switched out her body? You're gonna hide Quinn all your life now? Also, they were gonna blame it on some no-name crazy fans like his son Richie that have believed the conspiracy theories online, were going to take matters into their own hands and then kill Sam and Tara at the shrine. The shrine that Detective Bailey put under the name of the people he kills in the beginning of the movie. Isn't that going to look a little suspect that the people who own this shrine died before a bunch of these murders started happening? So obviously it should be someone else? Seriously, it felt like the Kirsch family did not think this through and did not plan out exactly how this would go. And I know some fans are gonna be like, Chris, you're looking at this too deeply. It's a horror movie. You're not supposed to think this hard on it. I know all the previous movies also have BS reasons for why they work out. I never loved that Nancy Loomis had to go through major weight loss and plastic surgery so that she could be a surprise reveal for the movie. That always seemed cheap to me. But in comparison to Scream 6, that is just copying the same motive, Nancy Loomis seems like a genius. Heck, even in Scream 2, Gale says, oh, I've seen pictures of Mrs. Loomis before because she wrote a book about the events of the first Scream movie, so she did her research like the good reporter she is. How, when she was writing the book for the requel, she didn't also do that research and look into the parents of Richie or Amber? Heck, our own main characters even say out loud, oh, so the killer's just copying step 2 because we're in college, a lot of the same things are happening. How did they not finish that train of thought in the movie going, oh, so the killer's got to be their parents? Anybody got Facebook so we can look up to see their family lineage? Again, I know every Scream movie has holes and logical issues, but Scream 6 to me by far has the most. Still a freaking awesome movie, but it's looking like Swiss cheese, man. I also just felt like just the motive of just being pure revenge wasn't enough. They should have added layers to it, and it felt like the movie was hinting at some layers. You had the opening where Ghostface says F movies, right? He was even kind of questioning Jason, saying, how could you do that to your professor? They were a person. They weren't an animal. When they were on the phone with Gale, they said, you know, you should be punished for all the money you made reporting other people's deaths and succeeding over that. There was even a line in there where Gale couldn't sell the movie rights to what happened in Scream 5 because everything was about true crime and limited series. And the reason Richie turned out to be a killer is because Detective Bailey said in the movie, I kind of pushed these love of movies to my son a little too hard. I encouraged him with it. I let him make his little fan films. I used my police power to get all this evidence over the years and help him build his collection. That was some interesting commentary in there, you know? Nancy Loomis had this line in Scream 2.
I'm sick to death of people saying that it's all the parents' fault. It all starts with the family.
It would have been nice if Detective Bailey kind of owned up to it and say, no, as a parent, this is my fault that Richie is a killer, but he didn't deserve to die the way you killed him, Sam. 27 stab wounds, slit to the throat. You essentially tortured my son to death, and that as a father should have made him mad. But I thought the other part of the motive should be, I feel guilty as a father for this, and I want to stop more ghost faces like my son from happening, which is why I killed off the 2 people that were trying to finish his movie, why I was trying to go after Gale because she would just write another book and encourage more fans of the stab world. As long as the Carpenter sisters is alive, it'll be a hot story, so they need to go too. Plus the revenge for what they did to Richie. Like, that could have been an interesting angle they didn't play up on. And I mentioned all throughout the trailers and promos for Scream 6, Ghostface says the line, I'm something different. There's never been one like me before. Those lines are not in the movie, clearly because the Kirsch family is just a copy of Nancy Loomis from Scream 2. There has been someone like you before. You're not something different. Makes me really wonder if there was a different plan for Scream 6. I think Radio Silence said whenever Neve Campbell decided not to be part of the movie because of the pay dispute, they said it significantly changed the plot of the movie. I don't know exactly how Sidney would have fit into this story, but I bet you she was going to be there for the monologue and the killer reveal, and it probably was going to have some sort of strong connection to Sidney. I'm not saying it was going to be Stu, but it was maybe something else that lent towards that line being true of I'm something different. There's never been one like me before. I think a cool different thing for this movie would have been for the dad to let Jason live all throughout the movie, force him to do his dirty work, and Jason the whole time wouldn't even know who he's working for. He's just receiving orders from this mysterious Ghostface, where this Ghostface is like, hey, did you take care of Mindy and Chad, or Danny, or Annika? You're not allowed to touch Sam and Tara, though. You leave those to me. And then at the end of the movie, Jason finds out who he's working for, and then that would have been who the dad pins all the murders on, Jason. That would have been an interesting and different, unique take for a reveal. But okay, if I'm forced to put those gripes and nitpicks aside of major holes and underwhelming feelings I have about the reveal, I want to talk about the cool things about the reveal. For one, the entire explanation of the shrine. So you guys were right, I was wrong. I thought it was going to be some sort of public museum where people can buy tickets and it would be promoting some sort of new Stab movie, the Stab musical in New York, whatever. No, you guys had it on the money. It was a police officer that abused his power and collected these items over time, but we didn't know that this collection belonged to Richie, and he was the one drawing all these pictures of previous people. That kind of knowledge now that Richie was this big of a fan, collecting real items from the actual killings, making his own short films, and his parents encouraging him, it kind of makes me like Richie as a killer a little bit more. You know, I like his motive more than I liked Richie as a killer, because I think Sam was definitely right in her explanation when she was talking to his dad, saying, your son was a punk. He let his girlfriends do all the killing. He was a wuss. I kind of agree with Sam on that one, but there was kind of an enhancement to know that Richie had this entire collection and made it more believable to me that he'd be willing to make his own movie. So I did think that was cool. Again, the commentary about the father letting his son watch these movies, encouraging his passion, because as a parent you do everything out of love and support, but not realizing again that love and support can actually be fueling something bad. I think about my dad who let me watch R-rated horror movies with violence, nudity, and all that at a young age. Thankfully, I didn't grow up very messed up. I got to make a successful YouTube channel. At least I think it's successful. But there are plenty of parents out there also who let their kids watch these horror movies at a young age. And what does that say about our society, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing? I thought that was an interesting little commentary in there. I liked that. The idea also that it was 3 ghost faces, something never been done before, and they were together as a family. Not necessarily a cult, but I think close enough. Makes me wonder where the mother is, because Detective Bailey was wearing a wedding ring. They didn't say whether she was dead or not, but I really hope she is not going to be revealed to be the killer in Scream 7. Another family member wanting revenge. I don't want that to happen again. The way Kirby was also utilized in the finale, they did a good job with the shrine, showing how the items in that room affected so many different characters. I mean, you had Gale looking at the Dewey stuff. You had Kirby looking at Jill's shirt and knife that stabbed her. You had the twins looking at Randy's video store shirt. It would have been cool to see Sidney see all that stuff, but I thought it was a good showcase that these Scream movies have impacted a lot of other people other than just Sidney, and that was really smart. I just kind of wish they did give Kirby a little bit more to do, the kind of fake out that maybe she was going to be Ghostface and that's where they were leaning to us. It was kind of possible to me that Kirby wasn't, but I'm glad she wasn't, and also that she survived, even though again, shot and stabbed. Definitely should be dead, Kirby, but she lives. I'm happy about it, but it just takes away that suspense of all these characters are pretty bulletproof, and at this point you just have to blow them up to kill them. While I also say I didn't love the Ghostface performances this time around. It's kind of known that once you reveal yourself as Ghostface, you just get this exaggerated expression of crazy. Other than maybe Quinn, I wasn't really getting it that much with the dad or Ethan. I did like that one line Ethan threw out about Tara where he's like, I always wanted to stick something inside you. It reminds me of this Stu line.
I always had a thing for you, Sid.
These ghost faces, man, they're weird. But Tara got some great payback, stabbing him in the mouth, twisting it, and then Kirby killing him with the TV Stu style, but not as freaking wild as Sam got towards the end, where she put on the full Ghostface outfit and then just went stabby freaking stabby on the dad. That was also a very brutal kill. You felt every little prick that was going in him, and Sam is just becoming like an MVP badass character, embracing this evil side of her. They brought back the Billy Loomis cameo for this one. I really don't think it was necessary. I'm happy that he gets to have a cameo in here. I forgave it in the last movie for that reason, but here it's just, I don't think it was needed. It was subtle and I think better used than in 5. But to me, it just comes off kind of hokey and cheesy. I could do without it, so I hope they don't do it in the 3rd movie. But it does lead me to wonder, you know, what are they setting up with Sam Carpenter's character? Because I immediately want to debunk the people who say she's going to turn into a Ghostface, okay? When she's staring at that mask and the music is swelling up and then Tara turns around and says, you're coming, and she drops it, that's a clear indicator that she's not going to be a Ghostface. She's putting that behind her. She accepts that she has this bloodthirst in her to be a killer, but she's not ever going to turn into her father. She's going to use it for good to protect the people she loves. That's how I interpret it, okay? I don't want this to be another repeat of the end of Halloween 2018, where we see the movie ending with our main character holding a knife, and then for 2 years we have fans going, I think she's gonna be the next Michael Myers. You saw the way they were holding the knife. They were hinting at that. No, Sam is not gonna become a Ghostface. But I'll tell you, I feel bad for the next Ghostface, because Sam, She ain't gonna run away. She's not gonna flinch. She finds out there's another Ghostface and she has a valid reason to go stabby stabby. She's gonna be excited for it. The last thing I talk about here before I expand further on what I want them to do in Scream 7 in their own separate video, because trust me, I think there are so many clues and obvious nods to what's gonna happen in the next movie. But the thing most people want to know about is, does this movie confirm or deny the whole Stu stuff? Is that someone we can actually see coming back? And I think it's just confusing as ever. Because one, you clearly have it on Kirby's whiteboard. They have it confirmed. Stu did die in 1996. It says death 1996. I know some people might see the screenshot where there's like a little question mark sticky note, but that's not questioning whether he's alive or dead. That sticky note was there because the Stu mask hadn't appeared in any of the crime scenes, so they were waiting for that mask to show up whenever Ghostface attacked. It wasn't a question of whether he was alive or not. But we did have that moment where Mindy and Kirby are sitting down, and Kirby's like, oh, the TV that killed Stu, and Mindy's like, if you believe he's dead, which I was like, so they leaving the door open, or are they just paying a nod to the fans like me who thinks Stu could be alive since he was originally supposed to be a killer for Scream 3? To me, it's really either or. I feel like it's the best way to please both fans. The ones who are annoyed with Stu wanting to come back and the ones who want Stu back. It would definitely be the thing that would make me super interested in Scream 7, but it could easily be the jumping of the shark. And I was just talking about, I don't want Scream to become Fast and Furious in the sense that by upping the ante, they get more ridiculous, more dumb, and then this series goes off the rails. So for now, I just think that's an Easter egg to the fans outside of the movies who want Stu back, but I don't know if they have plans for him to actually be back. Like I said, we'll talk about that in my Scream 7 prediction video, because I think there is a way for him to come back, along with my ranking video, but that was just my spoiler thoughts on Scream 6. I definitely want to know from you guys. I babbled on for so long, and I still think I missed a few things. So please, leave me your opinions down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films, or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.